Today we rebalanced our portfolio. I want to talk about the rebalancing of the portfolio. I want to also use this opportunity to elaborate, go back to the basics, explain the purpose of Orange Capital Partners and the principal stack that is our guideline in doing business. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's December 10th, 2020. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is up to 22.5%. The market is down 10 basis points. For the year, we are up 370%. The market is up roughly 13%. We're outperforming by 357%. The purpose of Orange Capital Partners is to generate wealth by investing in disruptive technologies with large impact. This is the purpose. We follow this purpose through with the application of a principal stack. So we developed a principal stack based on 4 books: 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, The Innovation Stack by Jim McKelvey, The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen, and The Beginning of Infinity by David Deutsch, which is sort of the basis of our principal stack. So the 3 first books are all wrapped up in The Beginning of Infinity, or The Beginning of Infinity gives us the philosophical ground on which we are building the other axioms. And I just want to, I've discussed those books at length. We discussed 0 to 1 in several episodes. We are still in the process of discussing The Innovator's Dilemma. We've discussed Jim McKelvey's book. So what I want to use here now today is to simply give the big picture guidelines. So what we believe in is unique monopolistic businesses that grow out of disruptive technologies, build an innovation stack around that technology, and grow into a new market that happens to be large also. So we are interested in large impact. The impact should be objectively good, although we don't want to be caught up in that conversation. So we don't necessarily want to solve problems that have an objective goodness or badness attached to it, because we believe that that is a very difficult problem to solve, since a lot of people can have different ideas about what is good and bad. Instead, we decided to have the large impact that we're looking for in problems that I would say a majority of people would consider as good. For example, we want to reduce the carbon footprint on Earth. That's it. We don't necessarily want to go after the climate problem, because that is not a good problem according to David Deutsch, and we believe that is perfectly true, because it's not definable, it's not accountable, it's not measurable. However, measuring the output of CO2 is a very simple task, and reducing the output of CO2 is doable. Tesla is our main vehicle for that, and therefore we believe that that is a problem worth going after. Tesla has an innovation stack that is exactly building towards solving that problem, and therefore we are happy to participate in that innovation stack. This is one of our largest investments. The second part of our portfolio is what we call the CRISPR index. The CRISPR index is a set of biotech stocks that have a couple of things in common. They're very different companies, but they have a few things in common. First and foremost, they're all in the synthetic biology, genomic, gene editing space. And again, here, this is an innovation stack that is built from the ground, that is creating new markets, and the generation of wealth, in our view, is going to happen through a large impact on good impact also. And again, here, the good is, for us, it's a subjective, of course, assessment, but we believe that, for example, finding cures for diseases by most people on Earth will be considered a good thing. We also believe that having regenerative growth, so that is growth that regenerates itself, which is another theme, by the way, that I haven't discussed recently, but it's part of our mission statement also. It's embedded in our mission statement, that we want to have large impact and very high growth, but regenerative growth. So that is growth that is either not using more resources, or even creating more resources through the application of technology. For example, Tesla is using photons to accelerate cars. That is regenerative growth. And the synthetic biology, gene editing space is developing regenerative growth almost by definition, because these companies are using the power of natural processes to solve problems. So to get back to the discussion, we have our principal stack is based on those 4 books. And the principal stack is really about a unique monopolistic business that is building an innovation stack out of a disruptive technology into new markets. And those markets should have a large impact. This is roughly what we're after. This is what Orange Capital Partners is doing on a daily basis. Now, today we rebalanced our portfolio. We sold Microsoft, we sold Illumina, we bought Pacific Bioscience, and we bought Fate Therapeutics. I discussed those two companies in a previous episode just shortly. We believe Pacific Bioscience is a classic disruptor in the gene sequencing space. They have so-called long reads. That means they can read a longer sequence of DNA in one shot. So far, this technology has been more expensive and less accurate. The accuracy is improving, the costs are coming down, and all the other benefits that are going with the long reads are still there. So therefore, this to us looks like a typical disruptive technology, and we believe that Pacific Bioscience has the potential to actually disrupt the market leader Illumina. Illumina actually wanted to buy them, and the regulator said no, and part of the reason the regulator said no probably is because this was a preventive purchase to prevent a competitor from changing the marketplace. So we're happy to own this stock. Fate Therapeutics is a very interesting company. They design immune cells, NK cells and T cells, in particular NK cells. Those are natural killer cells, part of our natural immune system. They design those cells from cells that they program to become stem cells. So they take a cell from your body, they make that cell a stem cell, and then they reprogram that induced stem cell to become a killer cell and go after tumors. This is, in a nutshell, what Fate Therapeutics is doing. Very interesting company. They presented, like many of our companies this week, has been extremely good for our index. Our index has contributed over 20% to the portfolio just this week. By the way, year to date, the index has contributed 62% to the portfolio as of beginning of year NAV. And we have now increased the position of the CRISPR index to 35% of the portfolio as of current NAV. 80% is still Tesla, and we have a little bit of options in RTX and Intel, but those they're very, very small. So let's get back to the repositioning. We sold Microsoft and we sold Illumina. The reason we sold Illumina is pretty much the reason we bought PacBio. We sold Microsoft because we believe the competitive landscape in the enterprise software business is becoming more and more aggressive. There's a couple of things we don't like about this space. For example, there's very high base salaries being paid for software engineers in the cloud computing space, and increasingly also in the productivity software space. Slack was bought by Salesforce.com, which will increase even more the need for highly paid salespeople. We believe that the enterprise software business is going from innovation and disruption towards competitive marketing and sales-driven type business processes, which is fine. You can make money with that, but it reminds us a little bit of Oracle and the old school enterprise software type business, and we just don't want to be exposed to that. We still think that there's a secular growth for remote work and things like that that is amazing for companies like Microsoft, but we see a lot more upside in the CRISPR space. Now, I want to give a general explanation for why we're very excited about biotechnology, at least this part of the biotechnology that we are looking at. And then I want to finish this episode with a general explanation for the purpose of Orange Capital Partners and our principal stack and what we're trying to achieve here. So we believe that the next decade or two, if not even this whole century, will be the century of biology and software, the merge of biology and software. Andreessen Horowitz has a new theme called Biology Eats the World. I think it's a little bit mispronounced here because biology has already eaten the world. Biology is the world. I think the merger of biology and software and the jumping of biology onto the Moore's law train, that is really what is eating the world. So another way to say this is you flip Ahrum's law on its head. Ahrum's law is the reverse of Moore's law. Some journalist once jokingly said, instead of faster and more progress every 18 months, it's the opposite. It just takes more money. It takes longer to develop drugs. So if you can jump on Moore's law, if biology can jump on Moore's law, then Ahrams' law can be flipped on its head. And this is the potential that we're so excited about. But here's the other big, innovation, or the big vision, which is we have a one-shot genetic solution to a disease. This is the great thing. This is what is so exciting. You have a problem, you have a disease, you identify the gene or the sequence of genes that need to be changed, you edit them, and there you go. You're all good. This is the potential. This is the dream. And we all hope we can get there. It lowers costs, it increases effectiveness. People don't have to go to the hospital all the time. This is what we're so excited about. Ahrams' law flipped on its back becomes Moore's law, and this is the potential. This is the compute power with knowledge gets lower cost, faster progress. This is what we're hoping for. This is what we're working for. This is where we see the bulk of our wealth generation in the biotech space. Now let's get back to CRISPR. So CRISPR is democratic in the sense that it's low cost, easy to apply, and it's applicable across mammal cells, mammalian cells, um, uh, agriculture, of course, in the medical field. So we can do a lot more research. We can find faster solutions for problems, create new problems, and solve those problems, create new problems, solve those problems. This is the innovation stack that Jim McKelvey is talking about. This innovation stack is happening on many dimensions within biology thanks to CRISPR. So this is number one. Number two, we have AlphaFold and the success in protein folding. This has just happened a few weeks ago, so this is really brand new. But I think structural biology, or the science of understanding the structure of life science objects such as molecules and things like that, just having an idea of the three-dimensional structure is unbelievably powerful. It gives us vision, it gives us understanding of symmetries and spatial relationships. And I think that alone will, again, foster a massive revolution. What's most important, though, is that we know already that basically the machinery of bodies, the machinery of life is proteins, and the proteins, they function through their spatial structure. So it's not the amino acid sequence that defines a protein, it's the amino acid sequence which defines how the protein folds, and then the protein folding process creates a structure which actually defines the function. And this is the fundamental insight of AlphaFold, which is we have the ability to predict how proteins will fold. And since we also know the genetic code of things, we can deduct from the genetic code how the amino acid sequence will look like. And now we can predict from the amino acid sequence how proteins will fold. Well, bingo, we can predict from the DNA structure how the function will be, and also backwards. So we can design also proteins by understanding a certain function, knowing what kind of structure it needs, and then go back and create an amino acid structure and a DNA, a synthetic DNA, which creates that kind of function. This is all very new stuff. It will take some time to see massive financial results here, no question about that. But we believe that this innovation stack is already in the process of being built. This week's ASH conference, the Association of Hematology, so the body that deals with blood diseases, is acknowledging that gene editing has enormous influence, an enormous positive influence on some of those diseases. And that's a proof of concept. It's very important. It's de-risking some of the portfolios of these companies. But again, we see our index as a broad index in the creation of knowledge in this space, which will drive biology more towards a digitized algorithmic science, more of an engineering type science. And this is really what we're after. We want to participate in the transformation of life sciences from a try and error bespoke type science to an engineering type science. And this is really the absolute key of what we do, and it's a very beautiful example. The purpose of Orange Capital Partners is to invest in companies that fundamentally change the concepts and engineering practices of certain markets, create new markets, and generate wealth. This is our purpose. And we believe that biology merging with computer science and jumping on the bandwagon of Moore's law is probably the biggest wealth creation opportunity ever in the history of business. at least on an absolute scale, because now we have this opportunity to use compute power, to use algorithms, to use all the knowledge that we've generated in the last 100 years since Turing, the invention of the transistor, the foundation of Intel and Silicon Valley. All of that industrial might can now be used to start solving problems in life sciences. And this is a massive wealth creation. And again, the purpose of Orange Capital Partners is to invest in companies that fundamentally change the concept and engineering practices of a particular field and create new markets with large impact on those markets. And therefore, life sciences merging with computer science is probably, like I said, the most important and most promising wealth generation opportunity in a lifetime. That doesn't mean that our largest position actually is Tesla, and we obviously believe that Tesla is further down that train. For Tesla is doing the same thing. Tesla is also using computer science and software and hardware and chip engineering to drive progress in decarbonizing energy, and that should not, absolutely not, we should not neglect that just because we have this huge opportunity on life sciences and because we have important proofs of concepts happening right now, propelling that space into a much more interesting, financially interesting sector to invest. That doesn't mean that the Tesla side is not interesting. The Tesla side is unbelievably interesting. We believe the wealth generation potential on the Tesla side is immense. But again, we believe that the life science merging with computer science is just an exciting opportunity. It's a little bit more fresh. It is maybe like Tesla 10 years ago, and we're very happy to be invested in both, and we expect wealth generation to continue on those two vectors. Thank you.